Welcome to the Gainesville Police Department. On behalf of Chief Tony Jones, this video will introduce you to various services the Gainesville Police Department provides, giving you an opportunity to hear from the brave men and women who work tirelessly each and every day to serve you, our neighbors. GPD is here to keep watch over our city, serving the needs of our community. To this day, our goals remain the same: to reduce the number of calls for service, decrease crime through prevention, intervention services, and enforcement, all designed to enhance the quality of life for everyone in Gainesville.
Hi, I'm Tony Jones, and I'm currently the Gainesville Police Chief. I've been with this agency for the past 38 years. The Gainesville Police Department has transformed itself over the years to a community-oriented policing agency. One of the practices that we preach at the Gainesville Police Department is that we want to be compassionate in dealing with the public. We also want to be consistent in our actions, and we also want to be, above all, constitutional in carrying out our law enforcement as well as our public service responsibilities in this community. When you speak of being compassionate, what we try to do is get our officers to empathize with our neighbors in this community. We want them to understand the feelings that they're experiencing when they contact the Gainesville Police Department. When we deal with consistency, what I ask our officers to do is treat everyone the same way. Regardless of what geographical area that you're assigned to at the Gainesville Police Department, we want you to treat all our neighbors in a consistent fashion. We expect that our officers, above all, will be constitutional, that they would not only abide by federal, state, but our local ordinance in carrying out their activities within the community. I hope that these insights into the Gainesville Police Department give you a better understanding of the men and women of this agency and how they strive to serve you better.
Good afternoon. I'm Jamie Kernick. I'm Chief Inspector at the Gainesville Police Department. The role of the Chief Inspector at the Gainesville Police Department is all about compliance. The three assignments that actually report to me on a regular basis, accreditation, internal affairs, and the Planning and Research Division, are all about making sure the Gainesville Police Department is holding itself to the highest national standards and setting the standard not only for law enforcement in Florida, but setting it for other agencies on a huge scale across our country. We really want to make sure we are evaluating everything that is happening within the community and making sure we're providing the best service. So important for us as a chief inspector, my job is to evaluate policies and procedures, to make sure we're doing the best possible job in our internal affairs investigations, and providing this amount of information back to the community to make sure we have community involvement and to ensure that our policies and procedures are relevant, up to date, and to the highest standards that the CALEA accreditation mandates from us. And CALEA allows us the opportunity to compare ourselves nationwide with law enforcement agencies that are our size. It is extremely important that we hold the highest standards of law enforcement here in the city of Gainesville. And during my entire career, that has been my goal and mission. This job as a chief inspector has not only propelled me to the opportunity to be able to look at the Gainesville Police Department from an internal perspective, but also to take a look at it from the external perspective of the community, and for us to be able to provide the best service possible and be the most relevant to the community and the citizens of Gainesville.
I'm Captain Mike Shentrup. I'm the Patrol Support Bureau Commander, and I've been at the agency for 24 years. So the CSAC is a development which we're not original in developing this use of technology. You'll see these centers in Chicago, in New York City, in bigger communities. And what we realize is that the effectiveness and the force multiplier created by these real-time crime centers, or what we call our Community Safety and Awareness Center, is vital to helping our patrol officers and our units with situational awareness in real time as they're responding to calls, as opposed to kind of investigation after the fact. We want these guys and girls who work the street to have that information as they're responding, as they're getting there. Basically what it is the capacity for the Gainesville Police Department to integrate a lot of technology that the city already had. The city uses a lot of traffic cameras for traffic management system. We've gained access to those cameras to use and to manipulate to give officers a real sense of what they're going to as they're responding to calls. An example would be, we have 2 traffic cameras at the corner of West University and 13th Street, right near campus. And right there we have a lot of incidents that occur. So a CSAC operator would be able to manipulate a camera and tell the officers exactly what they're going to and what corner the suspect might be on. Or is there somebody lying in a road? Or how bad is the traffic crash they're about to go to? It's absolutely a positive for our community and for our neighbors because we're using civilian staff, and if we can allow civilian staff to be a force multiplier, to give these officers who are responding to calls more information as they're responding, it just makes for a safer event, not only for the officer, but also for the person who may be committing a crime or may be wanted or maybe having some mental episode. If officers know what they're walking into, they're much more likely to have a plan and make the entire encounter safer.
I'm Rob Finelli. I'm acting captain with the Gainesville Police Department, currently assigned to District 1 as Operations Commander.
I'm Paris Owens. I'm a captain with Gainesville Police Department. I'm the commander of Operations District 2.
So as Operations Commander, we're responsible for patrol ultimately. Calls for service, referrals by citizens, community services through our patrol operations or through our patrol officers, any type of complaints that may come through the chain of command to us that are patrol related. Community-oriented policing really is just a philosophy where we are part of the community, right? We take community input first and foremost. So, rather than deciding what a neighborhood needs, we're gonna go out and we're gonna ask the community, what do you need? And that can look very different from community to community and from neighborhood to neighborhood. We want the citizen to decide what that is and then give us feedback on that, and then we can be responsive to that community's needs.
The major issues that we are currently seeing in our neighborhoods in Gainesville are an increase in violent crime, the increase in burglaries, juvenile crime, and the Gainesville Police Department is committed to going out, ensuring that we utilize all of the resources that we have necessary to deal with these issues. We don't want our neighbors to feel uncomfortable in their neighborhoods. We utilize community policing for a reason. We go out there and we make sure that we make the contacts. If there's an issue going on in the neighborhood, we make sure that we try to utilize as many resources as possible to go out and tackle that particular situation. It doesn't matter how small a neighbor thinks it is, it's big to us, and we want to make sure that any issues that they're having in their neighborhoods, we address them. We
highly encourage you to get involved in your neighborhood watch. That's a great way to have a one-on-one discussion and conversation with a patrol officer. And if your neighborhood doesn't have a neighborhood watch, we highly encourage you to reach out to the department so we can help you set one up.
My name is Field Service Technician Olivia Williams. I'm a supervisor with Gainesville Police Department. As a field service technician, we respond to non-emergency calls to kind of free up the officers a little bit. We handle burglaries of vehicles and businesses, as well as residential burglaries where there's no suspects on scene. We also handle traffic crashes. We do traffic takedowns. We handle parking calls, criminal mischiefs. We also process our own scenes for evidentiary items. Sometimes we have called in the school crossing guards, so we go out to different school zones. We have a total of 27 school crossing guards that's in our jurisdiction. So we go out and we assist the students crossing the roadway. We also look out for drivers that are not driving safe to ensure the safety of our students as well as the parents that are crossing in our zones. Also, as a field service technician, we go out and assist citizens. We educate them on how to keep their residents safe as well as their vehicles. We have what we call report cards, so we'll walk around in the parking lot sometimes and check the vehicle doors to make sure they're locked. And once we're on scene to handle different crimes, we give them suggestions as to how to better secure your vehicles, your houses. We don't make arrests. If we're on a scene to where a known suspect is in the area, we call for the assistance of sworn officers to come in and he'll take over from that point. We never get in situations to where we have to deal with a suspect on scene. Once we get on scene to relieve an officer, it is always a pleasure to do so because it frees them up to go and handle calls to where there's actually suspects on the scene, and it'll free them to do more of the hot calls. So being there, knowing that we can have them go and handle other incidents in the city is awesome.
My name is Reginald Wilson. I'm the Record Division Supervisor. I've been employed with GPD for 10 years now. Well, the Record Division, we process traffic citations, we conduct background checks for employment, adoption process, visa application. We resolve compromised identity cases where offenders have wrongfully used other people's identity during their encounter with law enforcement. We also respond to public record requests. We also process block summaries which is where we provide stats related to criminal offenses. Usually people who are trying to find a place to live will obtain that kind of information because they want to make sure they're living in a safe place. And then we also operate a teletype system, which is where we exchange information with all law enforcement. With that system, we enter missing person information, which could result into an Amber Alert for abductions, as well as a Silver Alert for elderly members. We also enter in stolen items and also stolen vehicles. If you are interested in submitting a public record request, we advise you to contact our office directly. Our main line is 352-393-7569. Then there's other resources where you can contact us via the website, GainesvillePD.org, or you can mail in your request.
My name is Christopher King. I'm a detective sergeant with the Gainesville Police Department. I've been employed with the City of Gainesville for a little over 12 and a half years. As the sergeant over the ICAC unit, I oversee the investigations of child sexual exploitation and human trafficking. On a daily basis, our division here at the Gainesville Police Department investigates cyber tips that come in through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The issue of child exploitation is a growing problem and one that we have seen more so this year than any other year in our history. This is in part due to the increase of the internet use by children being at home due to COVID-19. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, also known as NCMEC, has seen an increase this year that pushes us over the 20 million mark as far as cyber tips reported to the clearinghouse. The issues that we face here are also issues that we see nationwide and globally. As part of the task force, we are able to share information and discuss cases that we are seeing locally, but also we have access to investigators nationwide, and also through the assistance of Interpol, we can contact and reach out to agencies across the globe. In an effort to keep our children safe, the first thing we should be doing is having conversations with our children. If you want to know what direction you could head, you can go to NCMEC's website, which is missingkids.org. Through that website, there is plenty of literature that can help you as a parent, you as a teacher, or caregiver. Also through that website, you can make reports of child exploitation or reports of concern of child exploitation. You can provide as much information as you like, or you can also make anonymous reports. Now more than ever, we encourage our parents to be involved, to be present, and be aware of what their children are doing.
Hello, my name is Matthew Sides. I'm a police officer here at the Gainesville Police Department. I've been here for 15 years, and I currently work in the forensic crime unit. A lot of times people come up to us on the street if we're at a crime scene and they'll ask, oh, I've seen CSI, or I've seen this, or I've seen that on TV. It's very much different than that. Here at the Gainesville Police Department, the forensic crime unit's primary role is to respond to crime scenes and process, photograph, and collect items of evidence. When responding to a crime scene, our basic first thing we do is a walkthrough of the crime scene. We gather information as much as we can from detectives or patrol officers that are on scene. Next, we photograph the crime scene as it's presented to us. We locate and collect items of evidence, and then we either process those items on scene or we take them back to the lab to do further processing. Once we obtain those latent prints or DNA from the evidence, it can develop leads to where detectives can follow up and make contact with suspects. The biggest reward for me is whenever you find that one piece of evidence. I look at it like a puzzle. You can have all the pieces of the puzzle and you have to figure out how they go together. Sometimes you're missing a couple of pieces of the puzzle and you can't get a 100% view of what happened or what it's trying to portray, but you can try to collect as many of those pieces as you can. There are many aspects to police investigations, from patrol to detectives to forensics. And without what we do in forensics, without being able to find and locate those items of evidence, process those items of evidence, and get back these analysis to detectives, it's an integral part of prosecuting these crimes and trying to assist the victims whenever the victims may not have a voice.
I'm Renee Guyan. I'm a lieutenant with the Gainesville Police Department. I've been here for 20 years, and I'm currently assigned to the Personnel Services Unit. The personnel unit at the Gainesville Police Department is comprised of 6 members: a lieutenant, a sergeant, a recruiter, 2 background investigators, and a staff specialist. We are tasked with managing the advertising, screening, and hiring of all positions within the Gainesville Police Department, both sworn and civilian. The Gainesville Police Department is always looking for new officers to join us. We have several different avenues for that. If you're a young adult and you think that police work is something that would interest you, we have the Explorer program. which is geared toward high school age children. If you're a person who's interested in helping your community, solving their problems, responding when they need help, then you're somebody that we would like to have at the department. Somebody that's looking to listen, somebody that's looking forward to taking action to help somebody's neighborhood be better or help somebody out of a crisis. That's what we need. We need people that represent our community. A diverse police department should represent the diverse community that they work for. I believe that we represent that currently, but we're always looking for different types of people that can help round out our department. If this sounds like a job for you, or you have any questions about any of the positions at the Gainesville Police Department, you can find a link on our website that can help you get in contact with a recruiter, or you can call 352-393-7500 and ask for the GPD recruiter. Somebody will give you a call and be happy to answer all of your questions. One of my duties at the Gainesville Police Department is as the team commander for our negotiations response team. The negotiations response team, often referred to as the NRT, is 11 members strong. Our mission is to respond to critical incidents in order to increase the likelihood of safely resolving them. It is our intent to provide a highly trained and skilled team as a resource for the Gainesville Police Department in the handling of unusual occurrences. We may be called out to assist with a hostage situation, a barricaded subject, or a suicidal person. When we're called out, it is often because the incident has grown to a size that the operations and patrol system can't support. The advantage of having a negotiations team is that when we get on scene, we are not rushing to resolve anything. We have plenty of time to build a relationship and to earn the trust of the subject who's in crisis, whether they're barricaded or they're suicidal. The training that our officers have gives them an advantage of earning that trust. The ultimate goal of the negotiations team is to resolve this incident in a peaceful way, to develop a surrender plan with the subject so that they're comfortable surrendering to the police. More often than not, a subject that finds themselves in this situation is overwhelmed by the reality of a SWAT team being outside of their house or a demand to surrender. The negotiators are able to develop a relationship with that person and earn their trust so that they know that they're going to be safe when they exit. Oftentimes, family members are on scene, and the relationship that we build with the family member helps ease that as well and reduce the tensions and anxiety of the person that eventually does need to surrender to the police.
The mobile field force is made up of trained officers specifically to deal with large crowds, often dealing with protest. We are ready to respond and make sure that if there is a big crowd issue, that things don't get out of control, and the main goal is keep people safe, especially if it is a protest, and protect people while they're exercising their First Amendment rights to do so. With our training with mobile field force, as a unit, we're supposed to go out there and reach out to these groups and make contact and see how we can facilitate a safe protest that's going to be going on. And that basically exists seamlessly with the Gainesville Police Department and our community contacts. We are also trained in configurations to set up to clear out crowds if need to, separate opposing groups. Usually when we are deployed, we have large groups coming from out of town that are focused on some kind of event, and we are usually in a ready to respond mode, but thankfully we have not had to take any action in several years. In the city of Gainesville, with our community policing style and our contacts in the community, we are often able to communicate with any activist groups or anybody that has a planned protest, and they'll reach out to us, usually give us an advance notice, and we're able to assist them even when they have to take over a road, and actually we help facilitate some of those protests so they can do it in a safe manner. So we do not get in a confrontational type situation, but thankfully we have not had to take any action in several years with our crowds. We have very good relations with our local community, and so very few times do we have situations arise that require full activation of our mobile field force.
My name is Lisa Scott. I'm a sergeant, and I've been at the police department for approximately 9 years, and I currently oversee logistics and the administrative services unit. We are the primary unit that's responsible for preparing for a natural disaster, as well as responding to man-made situations and critical incidences, such as active shooters and things like that. Logistics also includes fleet services, and the big thing with that is making sure that our department personnel have their vehicles. It's maintaining records or regular maintenance and issuing the correct equipment in the car. We have different vehicles that you may see on the road, And the reason for that is they serve different functions. So we have marked patrol vehicles that are used primarily for calls for service and traffic enforcement. You may see the motorcycles that are assigned to the motor unit. Our field service technicians have also different vehicles to distinguish them from police officers. Part of our duties also include making sure all of our department personnel have the proper equipment and uniforms, and also things such as pens and paper. Sometimes people wonder why officers wear a standard blue uniform. The reason for all this uniformity is to make sure our neighbors know who we are and that they can come to us if they ever need us. Another area in which I oversee is the towing unit. The towing unit consists of one towing administrator, and their responsibilities is overseeing the permitting process for vehicles for hire. If you ever have any sort of toll complaint or pedicab complaint, we do have information on our website to submit that so they're investigated.
My name is Detective Corporal Joseph Castor. I've been a law enforcement here at the Gainesville Police Department for 10 years. The robbery and homicide unit doesn't specifically only investigate robberies and homicides. We do investigations on crimes such as felony batteries, aggravated batteries, missing persons, but we do focus more on robbery and homicides. We go out and we make contact with victims, witnesses, we collect evidence, we go out and apply for search warrants, we work with our neighbor agencies such as the Alachua County Sheriff's Office, federal agencies, the Medical Examiner's Office, and also the State Attorney's Office. Each investigation may range from a week to months to years, but every investigation is unique in itself. The initial officer responds and take initial investigation, but then we go out and do the follow investigation where we can collect surveillance videos. We talk to people. We apprehend suspect by gathering intelligence and trying to locate them by using neighborhood agencies also. Bridging the gap is important to us. That's how we solve the majority of our cases here in our agency, by building those relationships with our community partners. They help put our case together because what we want to do is put a case together to present for the state attorney so they can prosecute whoever is responsible for that crime.
My name is Amanda Prince. I have been with the Gainesville Police Department for 12 years. I'm currently assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division. I'm part of a specialized unit that concentrates on crimes against children, sexual-related violence, and incidents involving domestic violence. Crimes against children refers to investigations that involve child abuse, child neglect, sex offenses against children, kidnapping, and child deaths. Sexual violence means when someone forces or manipulates someone else into an unwanted sexual activity without their consent. It's important to understand anyone can experience or perpetrate sexual violence. Sexual violence impacts every community, affects people of all genders, sexual orientations, and ages. Those who sexually abuse can be acquaintances, family members, trusted individuals, or strangers. Domestic violence refers to any abusive behavior by a family or household member, but also includes intimate partner violence in dating relationships. These investigations involve physical violence, but aren't limited to physical violence. They also include any type of abusive behavior, like stalking, harassment, or cyberstalking. Investigations are conducted with a victim-centered approach. This means victims' wishes, safety, and well-being take priority in all matters and procedures. If you're a victim to any of these type of crimes, please don't blame yourself. You have a right to seek help and protection. If you're ready to report, there are many ways to reach out to the Gainesville Police Department. You can call our non-emergency number, which is 955-1818, and get in contact with a dispatcher that will dispatch an officer to your home. You can also come to the Gainesville Police Department's front desk and make contact with an officer and report that way. You can also report anonymously. Our #1 goal is the well-being of a victim. We understand that the best resolution for every victim isn't always an arrest. It may be access to resources or just someone to talk to.
My name is Brian Schaefer. I'm the Property and Evidence Supervisor for the Gainesville Police Department. Our day-to-day operation is to take in all the property and evidence that is turned in by the staff of the police department. That includes officers and field service technicians. Currently, we have approximately 100,000 pieces of evidence in our evidence rooms. Some of the important evidence that we get are narcotics, guns, money, and jewelry. We have a refrigerated unit that we put the biological evidence in, like blood and DNA evidence. It's very important that we store evidence in the correct manner as evidence. Sometimes even the older evidence can be used in prosecutions that occur now. If evidence isn't stored correctly, it may not be allowed to be admitted in court, and we could lose the case. So it's very critical that we follow all the chain of custody guidelines so that we can show from the day that it came in till the time it was brought to court where it was, who handled it, the dates, the times, and there is a continuous trail from when it comes in till it goes to the courtroom. Evidence is what tells jurors what happened. They look at the evidence physically and they see the elements of the crime, from a fingerprint to a blood sample. It's all important, and if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle and have it all entered as one unit, you may lose a very important crime.
I'm Sergeant Charles Owens. I'm the supervisor of the K-9 unit. I've been at GPD for 18 years. The K-9 unit's mission and statement is basically officer safety and citizen safety. We respond to all in-progress felony crimes and also assist officers on other active investigations and calls. The presence of the dog on scene is actually a de-escalation technique. When people see that the dog is on scene, they are less likely to fight or flee on foot. The unit currently consists of 4 dual-purpose dogs, and dual-purpose means that the dog is trained in criminal apprehension and also is trained on some kind of odor detection. We currently have 3 dogs that are trained for narcotics detection, and one is a gun odor dog. Our gun dog is trained on any kind of gun, so gun oil, the gun itself, ammunition, both live and spent shell casings. That dog has actually been utilized in finding crime scenes like drive-by shootings and also evidence. Criminal apprehensions mean the dog is trained as a locating tool. This means that the dogs are utilized to track someone that has just fled from some kind of crime scene, or also missing persons that are lost and we're trying to locate. Most of our dogs, the money is donated through private citizens and businesses through the city. To recognize the people that donate for our dogs, we actually let them name our dogs. As you'll see our cars through the city, the K-9's name will actually be on the front, on the license plate, and on the side of the vehicle. This is to let people know, hey, this might be the dog that we donated for, and also allows the people to come up and start a conversation and interact with the handler. If you see one of the handlers out and about, approach the handler and talk to them. They'd be more than welcome and happy to introduce you to their dog.
My name is Brittany Coleman. I'm the program manager for victim services here at the Gainesville Police Department and Alachua County Victim Services and Rape Crisis Center. And all of the advocates that work here at the Gainesville Police Department are provided by the Rape Crisis Center. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. We also participate in a after-hours call rotation, so there's a victim advocate available 24/7 to respond. I think the most important thing to know about working with a victim advocate is that all of the services we provide are free and completely confidential, so we're not required to share that information with anyone, including law enforcement. In addition to the counseling work that we do, we also provide personal advocacy as well, so we're able to help make safety plans with people if there's a safety concern for their case. We can help folks apply for emergency financial assistance through the Office of Victims' Compensation, and that can help with resources for medical expenses, for relocation assistance, to replace lost items for people, and we can talk to you a little bit more about what the requirements are if folks qualify for that. Our main focus is on the safety and the well-being of our victims and of our clients, and so whatever we can do to make the process easier, we definitely want to do.
My name is Lieutenant Michael West. I am the commander of our SWAT team, which stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. Our primary responsibility is to train for emergency situations that typically does not fall under our average or regular patrol officers. We sort of specialize in certain emergency situations. And to give you an example, barricaded subjects, hostage rescue, high-risk search warrants. We also get involved in what we call dignitary protection. When an emergency pops up, that's our responsibility. We have the equipment for it. That's where the special weapons, and then the tactics, because we get the training that usual officers just won't get. We train probably more than 240 hours a year. We're on call 24 hours a day, so immediately if the need arises for SWAT, I'm contacting the Alachua County Sheriff's Dispatch. I tell them where to respond to, and sometimes I may leave certain information for them, like if I need special equipment picked up from the station, whether it's a hostage type situation or barricades. If you see us and we're heavily armed head to toe, and we have whether it's armored vehicles or our equipment, all that is for not only protection of the SWAT officers that are responsible for protecting the citizens, it's also for the protection of the citizens and, I may say, of the suspect. If we're more fortified and armored, there may less likely be a chance that we have to use deadly force. And that's all we want to do. We want to save lives. Whether it's a citizen, whether it's a suspect, whether it's us, of course, it's for the protection of everyone. Sometimes we like to think that we're that break glass in case of emergency type thing. We're about life saving. And it's important to us that, when we get the call, that we are ready, which is why we train the hours that we train for that call.
Hi, my name is Mark Plord. I'm a lieutenant here at the Gainesville Police Department. Currently, I work in the Patrol Support Bureau, and one of the things we have in the Patrol Support Bureau that we're responsible for is the drone team. We initially just started with 2 drones. Currently, we have 12 of them. This is the DJI Mavic Enterprise, and what's nice about this is they can fly up to about 400 feet, and I think it's going to revolutionize policing. It's kind of a force multiplier. They can take the place of several officers on the ground. They are relatively easy to use, easy to learn how to use. So we'll be using these mainly to look for elderly folks maybe that have gotten lost with it, maybe the dementia. If we have any violent felons that have escaped from us, we'll be using this for our canine officers. If they're tracking somebody, we can put this up in the air and it can kind of hover above them and see anything in front of them, and then we can relay down to the canine officer what the drone is seeing. 2 officers who actually have them in the trunk of their cars. They will be out there working patrol and handling their normal duties as a patrol officer. But one of the things they will have a drone in their trunk. So if a particular call comes out that a drone would be applicable for, they will respond to the scene and they'll be able to put the drone up. And I think our goal is every year to add a few more drones to our inventory and get them out to the officers working the road, so there'll just be an extra tool that they will have in their car to use to help solve crime. Currently, the Florida state statute that governs drones is actually very restrictive for law enforcement officers. There's only certain times that we can use it. For instance, we can't just routinely put it up just for the sake of putting up the drone. We have to actually either have to have a search warrant, or there must be an exigent circumstance, such as a missing person, an escaped felon, something to that effect, a natural disaster. With us using the drones, it will help us solve a lot of crimes a lot quicker, be able to catch the bad guys a lot quicker, and hopefully find those missing relatives a lot quicker if they've wandered off. It's definitely the technology of the future.
Bridget Smart, Certified Crime and Intelligence Analyst here at the Gainesville Police Department. I've been here for about 4 years now. The Crime Analyst Unit is responsible for providing any crime patterns and trends that we may see to patrol officers, so that way we know how many zone officers we should have in each district, in addition to providing information that may help to solve crimes. This is something that's very critical for our department, and this is something that the crime analysts do on a daily basis. We review all crimes and provide everything that we can in efforts to help deter crime in our area, in addition to our surrounding county. The Crime Analyst Unit consists of 3 crime analysts. 2 are assigned to the patrol districts, Districts 1 and 2, and I am assigned to analyze and review all juvenile-related crimes. About 2 years ago, we noticed that we had an increase with juvenile offenders committing stolen vehicles and convenience burglaries. As a result, we created the Juvenile Auto Burglary and Auto Theft Suppression Meeting, also known as JBETS. This meeting consists of me hosting it every Thursday with a lot of our outside partners, for example, the Department of Juvenile Justice and the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. Each attendee is provided a list of priority juveniles, and we collaborate to intervene and provide services that each juvenile may need, such as counseling and educational essentials. In annual review of our first year following JBEDS, we noticed remarkable results. We noticed a decrease of 15% for stolen vehicles and 16% for convenience burglaries. We also noticed an unexpected success of less than 30% of juveniles were arrested. JBEDS is near and dear to my heart because I believe we provide every juvenile with a second chance.
Hi, my name is Desiree Rosano, and I'm a detective at the Gainesville Police Department, currently assigned to the SOU, Special Operations Unit of our Criminal Investigations Division. So the Special Operations Unit is our property crimes division within our Criminal Investigations Division, and what we do is investigate any type of property crimes that happen within the city of Gainesville. So property crimes are typically burglaries, and that would be burglaries of vehicles, businesses, homes, structures. Anytime something is taken from within those places, we will then take over after patrol does their initial report and investigate a little further. So most commonly in SOU, we deal with what we call conveyance burglaries, but those are vehicle burglaries that happen within the city of Gainesville. And in most cases, it's a situation where a vehicle has been left unlocked. They're not typically by force. And these suspects will enter the vehicle, take whatever they want or whatever they're looking for. Usually it's loose change, any type of valuable, cell phones, but the most important thing that we deal with, and the most dangerous, I should say, thing that we deal with is when handguns or weapons of any type are taken from those vehicles, which we do see often. In those situations, the doors, like I said, are left unlocked or a window is left unlocked, but very rarely do you see that a window is broken or forced entry is made. The best way to prevent from being a victim of a burglary of your vehicle is to secure it. So if you know that you do carry a firearm, or if there's any type of firearm in the vehicle, typically ensure that you bring that into the home. If you don't want to bring your firearm in the home, just guarantee that those doors are locked. One thing I see a lot also is that people will have doorbell cameras on their front doors, or they'll have some type of security camera system in their homes, and they are motion activated. That footage can be very helpful in solving that burglary.
Lieutenant Charlie Ward with the Gainesville Police Department. I've been a member since December of 2003, so 17 years at this point. I'm currently assigned to our Operations Division as a shift commander for day shift operations. I'm also the commander for the Emergency Services team here at the department. The team was created in 2015 in response to the rapidly rising number of active shooter events happening throughout the country. The department looked at what resources do we have to respond to one of these types of events, and in doing so they said, you know what, we need somebody or a team from specifically our patrol division that can provide a well-managed both tactical and medical response to one of these type of events if they were to unfold in our area. So we try to incorporate training as much as we can with all the different entities where a major event might unfold. But when looking at the model for the team, the agency didn't want to just limit the ability for the team to function to large-scale events. So what else can the team provide? And so they came up and said, you know, we need the team to have Narcan. We're having an increase in number of overdose deaths. So the emergency service team was the first unit at the department to be given Narcan. And immediately we started seeing an impact and the ability to save lives that way. We also realized that a lot of times a patrol officer might be the first responder to get to a medical event. So we need to enhance training for people within our patrol division medically. So our team began looking at what medical training can we get and train on frequently to be able to render aid to people and help save lives. So the Gainesville Police Department Emergency Services team is one of the few teams in the southeastern part of the country that has all of these tools at the disposal, specifically designed for patrol. And the hope is we never have some type of critical event that unfolds that needs that team. But the reality is it very well could happen, and the agency is ready to respond. These members, have the ultimate mission of providing a well-managed, rapid response to a critical incident with the ultimate hope of de-escalating the event and ultimately saving lives is what we would all like to see.
My name's Tony Farrow. I'm a sergeant with the Gainesville Police Department. I'm the patrol support sergeant. I oversee the Gainesville Housing Authority officer position, the front desk, the airport unit, and the reserve unit. The Gainesville Police Department airport officers have an important role in ensuring that not only the passengers, but the citizens of Gainesville are protected and safe. The airport unit is comprised of 4 officers and a sergeant. Their day-to-day function is to assist TSA with checkpoints to ensure that the airport is secure and safe. They do security checks, they do perimeter checks, they deal with passengers and pilots who often carry firearms. They escort them back through the checkpoint. Here at the Gainesville Police Department, there's approximately 7 different properties that the Gainesville Housing Authority officer patrols. So a lot of what Gainesville Housing Authority officer does is community-oriented. They're out there building relationships with the community, with the citizens, and obviously they're reporting crime and helping keep crime at bay on the properties. The reserve unit at the Gainesville Police Department affords people the opportunity to work 20 hours a month for the Gainesville Police Department. You have the same powers as a normal police officer on a day-to-day. You're driving your own car and you respond to calls for service. It's comprised of, right now, approximately 6 officers, and they work to help assist patrol and sometimes other areas like Detective Bureau or training.
I'm Acting Sergeant John Kaprowski. I'm the Traffic Unit Commander for the Gainesville Police Department, and I'm working here approximately 16 years. This traffic safety unit comprises of 8 motorcycles, which are Harley-Davidson Road Kings, 1 dedicated traffic vehicle, and 1 DUI vehicle. The main objective of the traffic safety unit is to reduce traffic fatalities and serious bodily injuries. We do this by proactively enforcing traffic laws as well as the educational component. Some of these components are things such as pedestrian details, traffic details, as well as providing education such as a SMART course. One of the aspects of the traffic safety unit is handling traffic homicide investigations. These are unfortunate incidents that involve vehicle crashes where fatality or serious bodily injury occurs. The officers on the traffic safety unit are certified members to go out and review crash scenes, crash data, crash measurements for skid marks, reconstruction. We have reconstructionists on our unit that reconstruct a whole crash. EDRs, which are pretty much known as the black box of a vehicle. We can do downloads, and we come up with a whole separate investigation from just the basic crash investigation to recreate what occurred, how it occurred in a crash that's fatal, so we can look back at the data and try to improve our enforcement to reduce those. Traffic enforcement is accomplished not just by the Gainesville Police Department, it's other agencies as well. We do combined details together with Alachua County Sheriff's Office, University of Florida, FHP. We all come together and we proactively work together to reduce traffic fatalities and serious bodily injuries, as well as educate the public on traffic enforcement and laws. Recent events, tragic events involving fatalities on the roadway from University of Florida students, we've created Operation Gator Step. Now, Operation Gator Step is designed to focus strictly on pedestrian and vehicular traffic violations. State statute was built around the safety of individuals walking across roadways and vehicular traffic that's crossing these roadways to intermingle safely with each other. And that's why we're looking at pedestrian crosswalks. One of the main issues is drivers are pulling up to a red light and then they're going to make a right-hand turn. State statute says you must stop and ensure the crosswalk is empty or the roadway is empty of pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic before making that right turn. If you're not stopping, you're just making a right-hand turn, and that's why the statute says that's a violation. It is unsafe for you to do that because if something's in the roadway, you have not evaluated your roadway to make sure that there's no dangers ahead or no pedestrians in your way. Drive up to the stop line, and they'll cross over the stop line, and we see them literally, they try to stop for the red light because whether they weren't paying attention, they were inattentive, or they were driving too fast and they couldn't stop in time, and they're literally stopping their car on the crosswalk. All right, so if you're already crossing that crosswalk and stopping on the crosswalk, this means pedestrian traffic already had the right of way to be in there. If someone's in that crosswalk and you can't stop, you're gonna be striking a pedestrian. So we're looking at these violations to educate people to be more aware, give yourself time to stop. Last thing I think anybody wants is to hit somebody. By following these rules guided by the Florida State statute, we can create a more safe roadway for pedestrians and vehicles. There's some confusion sometimes on the University of Florida where pedestrians mainly use the roadways to cross from building to building to get to classes. Then they walk outside of campus into the city and in their mindset, they're still walking across the roadways as if they were on campus. Well, campus is a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone. Vehicles may have more of an opportunity to slow down or stop. When you get into higher speeds, such as 30, 40 miles an hour, vehicles don't stop that quick. They don't have the ability to quickly stop as they do on campus, and we're seeing that more and more pedestrians walking in the roadway are being struck by vehicles. This is a serious problem. The first focus of Gator Step is to focus mainly in the areas around the university, but it's not all contained just around the university. It is all over the city of Gainesville. The second focus, as we move on, we're going to expand outwards, collecting the data as we go along. Once we evaluate the data from Gator Step, we will put that together on the problems, the solutions to the problems, and then we're going to institute the enforcement actions and education deployments to address what the data is saying is what's wrong with the roadways.
I'm Detective Sergeant Nick Farrar with the Gainesville Police Department. I'm in charge of finance crimes. We cover everything from stolen cell phones all the way up to $1 million embezzlements by employees and everything in between. Because of our population here in Gainesville is pretty diverse, we have a lot of people that are lower income, we have a lot of elderly, we have a lot of students, and they all are targeted by scammers that deploy all different types of scams that's kind of tailored for each one of these groups. A lot of times, it is difficult to follow up on these when our perpetrators are actually in other states and a lot of times in other countries. A lot of these crimes are very difficult to prove. It's very difficult to identify some of these suspects involved because some of these suspects are very coordinated. They'll actually use other people as pawns for them. So when you do all this work and you think you've identified a suspect, that person turns out to be the victim of another scam. So what I try to do in my position is really push prevention. You really have to use common sense in these cases to where if you think it may be real, then hang up the phone and call that individual, whether it's somebody that reached out to you on Facebook asking for money, because a lot of times people's Facebook pages could be hacked and all their friends lists are getting the same exact message. There's nothing saying you can't stop. Call that person up and say, hey, do you need assistance? Did you send me a message on Facebook asking for money? And a lot of times you'll find out they did not, and it's a scammer. Same thing with, if somebody calls and says that you have a warrant for your arrest and they've identified themselves as somebody with the sheriff's office. Even though it looks like on your caller ID that could be the phone number from the sheriff's office, a lot of times these guys will use programs to spoof that number. Hang up, call that police department or that sheriff's office and just verify if that information is correct. And 99.9% of the time, it's fake. It's a scam. Bottom line, when in doubt, if the deal seems, too good to be true, it probably is. It probably is a scam, even if you think it's from somebody that you know. Another one of the crimes that I'm in charge of are stolen vehicles. And I will have to say here in Gainesville, the majority of our cars, if not 95% or more, are involving cars that are left unlocked with the keys left in it, sometimes even as they're running. Never leave a key in your car at all. A lot of these crimes are preventable.
Hello, my name is David Rodriguez. I'm with the Gainesville Police Department Drug Task Force and Highway Interdiction Team. As part of one of the team members on the Highway Drug Interdiction Team, our responsibilities are to enforce traffic laws on the highway. As well as enforcing the traffic laws on the highway, part of our job is try to intercept any criminal activity that may be going up and down our highways, the highways that cross through Gainesville. Things that we see on the highway are anything from warrants, individuals who have fled from other cities, other towns, moving drugs, as well as human trafficking. So we have done a lot of apprehensions of individuals that are moving people against their will from one point to another and hold them against their will to either work or be used in sex trafficking. The way we stop a lot of this is by doing a short interview and determining whether criminal activity is afoot. During these stops, we have seized millions of dollars worth of cash and hundreds if not thousands, of pounds in drugs. So if you see anything that looks suspicious or out of the norm, please contact 911 immediately. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Hello, I'm Victoria Young. I'm a lieutenant with the Gainesville Police Department. I'm currently assigned to the Training and Education Division. I've been with the Gainesville Police Department for 18 years. What our responsibility is to coordinate and schedule training for the entire department. That could be anything from skills proficiency and maintenance, as well as incorporating new training into our curriculum. That's for both sworn and civilian personnel. Training for our agency is extremely important because without ensuring that our personnel, all our personnel, are aware of what's expected of them, but then also how to apply those things correctly and appropriately, and as our neighbors expect them to, it really impedes our ability to give the kind of service that the community deserves. So just as important as it is for us to make sure that we're driving safely on the roadways and that we're using our weapons accurately, it's also important to understand that our personnel know how to speak with people. It is important to understand that our training isn't static. It isn't the exact same training every year or every cycle. Our officers are training in blocks, which are typically a month to 2 months in length, where they're getting specific training. A lot of time that training is driven by things that we've seen ourselves in the agency that we recognize that we can improve on, as well as concerns of citizens. Not to mention the things that are going on just around the country and making sure that we're responsive and actually ahead of the curve on some of those things. For some of the people who've heard maybe of 8 Can't Wait, a lot of that, honestly, the Gainesville Police Department had already started incorporating into our policies and practices several years ago beforehand. And I think that it's benefited us greatly in our relationship with the public. The CoResponder team is a partnership between the Gainesville Police Department, City of Gainesville, and Meridian Behavioral Health Care, where we have a sworn police officer in full uniform in a marked patrol vehicle riding with a civilian master's level clinician every day. Currently, the team that we do have is out Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. However, our team is expanding. This team that we have now has been deployed since April of 2018, and we've made many strides in just that small time. The team was created as a response to a need that we saw in the community, that we had several individuals, some with mental health issues and some others that were just in crisis and or experiencing trauma, and they needed a specific type of service immediately as well as follow-up. So what our CoResponder team currently does is they will respond to calls. They aren't necessarily dispatched unless requested by a citizen and or an officer. Over time, the team has become well aware that a lot of incidents can involve trauma and or crisis, and so they'll respond and be available resource for the officers on scene. They'll usually make contact with the individual, build a rapport rather quickly, and determine if the individual is connected to services or if there's a need for services. Once a referral has been made, they'll actually go back out and follow up with them to make sure that they've stayed connected with those services. A lot of times the individuals that we serve, we may come in contact multiple times, and that's simply because there are very basic needs that they need to have met that aren't met, such as a place to stay, or even transportation that makes it very difficult for them to stay connected to services. So there have been times that our CoResponder team has actually given individuals rides just to an appointment to make sure that they can maintain connection with that service. So there's been a lot of kind of case management and follow-up that initially we weren't sure was going to be needed, but definitely there's a need for it in our community. Our CoResponder team is truly a team. They have the benefit of riding together every day, but they're just an example of how well we work, even as an agency, with the other partners in the community that we have. So there may be a situation where the officer may need to come in and make sure that things are de-escalated to the point that we can provide assistance and services and referrals. And the clinician understands that there's a role that the officer plays. However, when the clinician steps in, our officer also understands that there's a different side to their responsibility as a law enforcement officer that they have to take at that point. And sometimes the lead in that is the clinician, even though the officer is there with a badge and a weapon. Being on the cutting edge, the Gainesville Police Department has not only been the first agency in this area to have a co-responder team in the model that we have with the officer and clinician going out together and responding to calls, but we're also taking the information that we've gained from that team in the last 2.5 years and said, hey, there's an even greater need. We're expanding our team. So what we're looking at now is bringing in more clinicians to ride with officers to respond specifically to those calls for service and being available. Additionally, there have been other agencies that have even come in and have rode with our officers because they're interested in finding out how they can start a team and garner some of the success that our team has.
Hi, I'm John Alexander, and I am currently the Acting Director for the Youth and Community Service Bureau. The Youth and Community Services Bureau within the Gainesville Police Department is one of those units that kind of serves at the heart of community-oriented policing. Our unit is comprised of many men and women that go out in the community and build relationships through youth services, young adult services, crime prevention, ensuring that neighborhoods are safe, empowering citizens to be active in their own communities. And it's been a staple in the Gainesville Police Department for years. Our current leadership, Chief Tony Jones, came up through the ranks a lot of times through the Youth and Community Services Bureau. And so we do a lot in our community, very well known, and we're here to make an impact with all of the things that we provide in the Bureau. One of those is the Reichert House Youth Academy, which is a program that's been around for more than 30 years. It serves high-risk males between the ages of 8 and 18. The program is geared towards assisting those young men to become productive citizens of our society, as we say, taxpayers and not tax takers. We specialize in that particular unit with educational enhancement, character development, life skills, vocational skills, and post-secondary placement is key. But life doesn't stop there. We have young men that need services after the age of 18. You have those that never received services before the age of 18, and thus the BOLD program was created, the Brave Overt Leaders of Distinction. And this program was primarily geared towards individuals coming out of the criminal justice system, having to re-enter back into society with the challenges that they faced. When individuals have records, sometimes they have occupation challenges, employment challenges, and housing challenges. Well, the BOLD program was created to kind of serve as an equilibrium to those particular challenges and give young men the opportunity to reintegrate back into society without some of the strains and pressures that will cause them to recidivate. A couple other units that we have a very strong partnership with the Alachua County School District, and one of those programs is called the Outpost. The Outpost was created to assist those students who are what will be considered highest risk students in Alachua County. They attend an alternative school called the Aquin Jones campus. And those students, even on that campus, present challenges to the traditional school setting. Therefore, they're sent to the Outpost program. In terms of recreation and national partnerships, the Gainesville Police Department became an affiliate chapter of the National Police Athletic Activities League, which is a national organization with over 300 chapters throughout the United States of America, including the Virgin Islands as well. That program is designed to forge relationships between law enforcement and the youth of our society to build those positive relationships. Our most recent program that we added to the repertoire of the Youth and Community Service Bureau is going to be our RESET program, and it stands for Restoring Ex-Offenders Through Services, Education, and Training. And these are young men who are coming through the court system. They are court-ordered to our program, and we take them through a lot of intense social and emotional learning training. more recognition therapy training as well to rehabilitate them back into a normal setting, whether that be back into a traditional school setting, or they can matriculate into the Riker House Youth Academy program or other programs that we may refer them to in our community. The Office of Public Affairs was thought about by our chief to forge a space to really increase and improve the relationship between our citizens and the Gainesville Police Department. And in November 2019, that office was created to establish those relationships. And so rather it be going out, participating in meetings, getting the feedback from the community, inviting the community into the space of the police department so that they can have an active role on how they want to be policed in their community, but also understand the role of law enforcement and how we can all work together to improve public safety for all citizens here in the city of Gainesville.
My name is Caleb Young. I've been with the Gainesville Police Department for 16 and a half years. The program that I'm highlighting today is the INSPIRE program, also known as the Violence Interrupters. This is a community-based program under the Black on Black Crime Task Force who partners with GPD to implement services. The INSPIRE program is based off a medical model to prevent crime in the neighborhoods. One of the most important things about the crime interrupters is detecting and interrupting potential violence carriers, engaging the community, and mobilizing the community. We do that by encouraging the residents to take control of their neighborhood by being active and instilling pride in their neighborhoods and allowing people the understanding that crime in the neighborhood is not a normalcy. It's okay to be engaged in your community, actively engaged in your community. It's okay to communicate with law enforcement. It's okay to voice your interests in the community and work in the community. At the Gainesville Police Department, our programs here are designed specifically to build relationships. And we know that you cannot arrest your way out of a problem, but you can communicate your way out of a problem. We depend on that communication. If you trust us, you'll talk to us. And if you talk to us, we can ultimately affect change in our communities. And crime won't be a normalcy, but progress will.
I'm Lieutenant Rob Kohler. I'm a member of the Gainesville Police Department. I'm a lieutenant. I've been here for 28 years now, and I run the School Resource Officer Unit. The primary mission of the School Resource Officers is to maintain that relationship with city youth and the city and police officers through understanding, through mentoring, through counseling. That's still a huge part of what we do. We also have morphed towards safety as well. So we do safety on the crime prevention side. We do assessments of the schools on an annual basis and offer recommendations to the state and to the city and to the school board itself as to how to do better with what they have at the schools. We have a lot of kids, we have a lot of staff who have issues that aren't just campus related, but are issues that occur in their homes, that we can be a resource for them and help bring forward the other resources that they need to bring a positive resolution to that child's problem. We partner with a spectrum of organizations throughout the city in order to meet the needs that are brought forward to us through our relationship with kids and with the other populations in these schools. One of the important roles that school resource officers provide is trust building. At the beginning of the day, when a school resource officer is standing in front of the school, opening the doors for children to get out of their cars, tying their shoes, helping them with their backpacks, and then engaging them in conversations. The students and the parents begin to see these officers differently than they do in some of their communities, where they see officers maybe more in an enforcement role. And it makes the uniform more approachable, not just at the school, but hopefully out in the community as well. That's the hope.
My name is Mortlake Nemhard. I'm the Community Services Program Coordinator here at the Gainesville Police Department. Among the responsibilities that I have is the administration of our volunteer program. The volunteer program offers opportunities for our community citizens to participate in the process of providing for the public safety of the citizens of Gainesville. And it really gives everyone an opportunity to see the inner workings of the police department. We need support in so many areas, from things such as clerical support. We have opportunities within our forensics unit, within our crime prevention unit, working with youth in the community, providing tutorial supports or mentoring activities. At the Gainesville Police Department, we really like to have volunteers to come in. We like to have our citizens become a part of our process because it gives us a fresh perspective and a better understanding of what our community's expectations and what our community's perspectives of policing are. It allows for us to modify our training methodologies and adjust our focus so that we can be more connected to our community and more responsive to the needs of the Gainesville community. We welcome you to apply and look forward to having the opportunity to have you join us and join the GPD family.
My name is Will Halvosa. I'm currently the DMC coordinator with the Gainesville Police Department, which is a disproportionate minority contact coordinator. The chief was offered a grant from the Center for Children's Law and Policy out of Washington that addressed DMC. That was a new term for us. It was something that I became familiar with. The chief made me the point person for that grant. And it was a small grant, but it really allowed us to kind of do a deep dive into some of our data and some of our numbers to look at some of the work that we were doing and why we were doing it. I think that's probably the most important sort of question the chief wanted to have answered at the time. And when I talk about DMC numbers, we're looking at the arrests that we make as gatekeepers. We were arresting a lot more African Americans in this community, although they represented about 23% of our population. 75 to 80% of the youth arrests that we were making were African Americans, black and brown youth. So we certainly had what was called a DMC issue. One of the big areas that we recognized that we were doing a lot of damage was we were arresting a lot of kids on campus. We were averaging about 130 arrests a year. We've been able to successfully reduce that down to about 5 arrests a year, so that's about a 95% reduction in some of our efforts at school. One of the first goals the chief had was to keep some of our youth on probation, who again were black and brown youth for the most part, keeping them in school. So we stopped arresting kids in school that committed a violation of their probation. Through that goal, I think we've introduced training to our school resource officers and our department to include police youth dialogues, to include trauma-informed training, to include procedural justice, fair and impartial policing. So we've been trained on implicit and explicit bias. So there's a lot of education that we brought to the Gainesville Police Department over the last 5 years that I've been blessed or fortunate enough to sort of roll out. The chief just knew early on that we were having sort of a communication breakdown between some of the officers and some of our more at-risk youth. And so we again collaborated with the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, and we brought those dialogues to GPD. We used every month 10 to 12 at-risk kids, marginalized kids, youth in need of services, along with 10 to 12 at-risk officers. So we had those discussions. It was about a 5-hour training block, and we continued to do those trainings. And through that dialogue, we've recognized perceptions that needed to be addressed, and again, some realities that needed to be addressed, and really wanted to expose, I think, to the officers the hopes and dreams that a lot of our youth really have, and really not to define youth by maybe some of the trouble that they adolescent, behavior that they got in trouble for. So we had some very successful, every one of those dialogues was very successful. The Gainesville Police Department, we have the HEROES program every summer that we work with 10 to 12 at-risk youth. We have procedural justice training that we provide to the officers. We have invitation for any community dialogues that they'd like to see officers and have an accountability session. We provide those opportunities, I think, to anybody that wants to have those through the University of Florida or Santa Fe College. So we work with everybody, I think, in the community to really address some of the needs with a lot of the kids that we're currently working with. So our System of Care meeting continues to meet once a month. That's the backbone agency is the school board of Alachua County, but that's something that myself and the chief have been involved with since the very beginning. And those monthly meetings are at the Gainesville Police Department, so we still continue again to look at some of those wraparound services, social services, mental health. There's a lot of organizations, I think, in this town that would welcome any sort of support or input. It's just challenging right now, I think, to have these kind of robust and rich dialogues. But I think in 2021 we're going to do a better job of really having these sort of town hall discussions, which aren't designed for us to sit up there and tell you why we do what we do. They're more designed for us to open up our ears and listen to some of the concerns that the community has with us.
I'm Officer Dontanya Cooper Smith. I've been with Gainesville Police Department 21 years. I'm a school resource officer. I'm I'm also the advisor for Post 917 Gainesville Police Explorers, and I'm also the cadet coordinator. Gainesville Police Department hosts Post 917 of Gainesville Police Explorers. Exploring is through Boy Scouts and it's considered occupational scouting. Post 917, the intent of the Explorer Post is to educate and involve youth in police operations and interest them in law enforcement functions. We do this through character building, quality traits, hands-on training, and a lot of one-on-one contact with kids. We tend to meet once a week, and in that once-a-week meeting, we try to train and educate kids within law enforcement. The youth receive community service hours for a lot of the activities that they do, and we try to give back to our community in a lot of different ways. The Explorers get to participate in summer camps that are hosted by Gainesville Police Department. Within the camps, they get to help teach and mentor other youth in the community that are younger than them within law enforcement facets that they have learned through the post and all of its endeavors. Being part of the Police Explorers can be very team building. We are part of the Florida Association of Police Explorers. We participate in multiple competitions throughout the year and trainings throughout the state of Florida. We've also been part of Winterfest, which is a huge competition in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And in the meantime, my kids have actually ranked and came back with trophies from each of these. And I think that alone brings about some type of pride, and I think it builds them. I think it builds them toward being positive and productive citizens. Another thing I like to think that the Police Explorers teach us is leadership. Within our rankings, you can be promoted up, you get responsibilities, you learn chain of command, and different supervisory techniques that can be used and fostered to help you along the way within your career and within life. To be part of the Gainesville Police Explorers, there's an application and interview process. You must have at least a 2.5, as you must be at least 14 and at least in the 9th grade. We do ask that our kids keep up a certain moral character as they do represent the Gainesville Police Department. Gainesville Police Department has a program called the Police Cadets. To become a police cadet, you must be at least 17 and you must be eligible or enrolled in Santa Fe College. Within this program, it's considered a scholarship/training program. Within that, you're given a scholarship at Santa Fe College. Your hours are paid for, your books, and then your additional time to equivalent to 30 hours a week are spent at Gainesville Police Department with hands-on training with officers and individuals there. We actually have 45 positions that are available throughout different times of the year. We put a lot of emphasis on education because while you're there, you must keep at least a 2.5 GPA. But outside of your school hours, you're spent time working Gator games and different ride-alongs with the Gainesville Police Department. Cadet ones are considered the actual college kids. Once you have gotten your 60 credit hours and your AA degree from Santa Fe, GPD will sponsor you once you pass adequate testing and are eligible for the Police Academy. Once you complete a Police Academy, it's just a step away from field training and then you're a solo officer with the Gainesville Police Department. We do ask that if you are applying to become a cadet, that you are interested in being an officer with the police department. The Gainesville Police Cadet Program gives those who are interested in law enforcement and come through it the greatest success at being an officer at the Gainesville Police Department. We have put a lot of time and energy, and we help these kids and foster them along the way of being the best cop they can be.
Sergeant Miller Agno with the Gainesville Police Department. I'm currently supervisor in charge of the Training and Education Division. One of my responsibilities for the Gainesville Police Department is to oversee our honor guard. We're responsible for all funerals, line of duty death funerals, retirements. We'll also get involved in promotional ceremonies, retirement ceremonies, and anything else pretty much the chief assigns us to. When it comes to line of duty deaths, we are responsible for the moment that the officer passes to continue on until the moment that the officer is laid to rest, their final resting place. That can include assisting family with funeral arrangements, that can include escorting family around, making sure that they're fed and that the littlest needs are met, whatever it is that makes it easier for them during the tough time. From the moment that an individual is requested to be a part of the team to, I think, the day that they leave the department or separate from the team themselves, the member has to show a lot of qualities: professionalism, the way they represent themselves, whether on the job or off the job, to the moment that we are there, whether it be a promotional ceremony or a line of duty death or a retirement, they're requested to present themselves at a higher level than even the most professional officer while on duty. The way they look, how their uniform looks, it's a little bit more than question and answer. There's not a whole lot of talking while on the honor guard, obviously. It's more about detail and attention. Do they pay attention to when they come in? What do their shoes look like? That self-pride is what we're asking for on the honor guard, because that then will represent who they are to the officers that they're serving when needed the most. So even the simplest thing gets scrutinized and gone over and over and over again to make sure that when individuals, citizens, other people from the Gainesville Police Department see us, that it's very professional and very well done. I definitely participate in the honor guard because of what I believe the individuals deserve in return for their service and sacrifice, especially when it comes to line of duty deaths. But even as so much as a promotional or a retirement ceremony, giving back to somebody is what's most important. We don't do this for pay. We're not there because it's overtime or anything else. We do this because we believe the individuals deserve honor for what they've done and the dedication and service that they've given to their community.
Thank you for watching this video on the Gainesville Police Department. We encourage you to learn more about the services we provide. We are open to any discussions regarding these and other topics, and welcome our neighbors to engage us in conversation on any subject of concern. You can visit us at our website at gainesvillepd.org or follow us on social media to stay informed.